Boom.
Hold up. All right, here we go. All right, we are live. Steve Metrics with your boy.
DJ Triggs.
And together we are No Debate Sports. And man, it is looking pretty good today. Man, we are covering multiple divisions today. We are finishing up our fantasy recap of the NFL, of team by team by team by team, and who we like to look at. And then we got some tips and tricks of fantasy on the show because your boy DJ Triggs and Steve Metrics here, we are doing our crazy 24 team fantasy football draft. 9 rounds,
Boom.
so it does kind of come back to reality in some aspect. But yeah, pretty dope stuff we got rolling around with 24 teams. And this is just the beginning. Next year, we are looking at 32 teams in our No Debate Sports Fantasy Football Draft. So how about that stuff? How about that, Triggs? Where are we going to first on the fantasy landscape between the AFC East and the AFC West?
So the last team I was doing notes on.
Sure.
How about the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah,
Let's go to the West.
Yeah, let's go to the West. I mean, I've been seeing the projections on offense. And my gut tells me that I think this could be, honestly, I think this could be the best overall year that we've ever seen out of Patrick Mahomes. I think this is the year where really, like this is the year where we're seeing his growth start to evolve on himself outside of the offense. And yes, he's had a great play caller and Andy Reid and everything. But I think this is the first year where we start to see Patrick Mahomes really become Patrick Mahomes on his own end. And it's ironic because I see that in him. I see great things in Isaiah Pacheco. They do shifty things with their tailbacks behind Pacheco as well. And I don't know. I do have a little bit of concerns with the receiving core. We know Rashee Rice has legal issues. Hollywood Brown is already banged up. Xavier Worthy is your rookie. Travis Kelce is really getting up there in years. I know they drafted a tight end last season as well, so they're trying to get that guy developed.
Right.
It's weird because I'm personally, and I just felt this like, I want to say today, I'm kind of losing confidence in the receiving core, but yet I have this tremendous confidence in Patrick Mahomes. So I have this weird dichotomy of how I would draft these guys. Maybe Isaiah Pacheco kind of takes a step up in his passing game, kind of like we saw Joe Mixon do last season. So I do wonder about that. And I think honestly, I just love watching Isaiah Pacheco. He is one of my favorite players, favorite running backs in the NFL. He is an awesome guy to watch. But I feel great things that we'll see out of Patrick Mahomes throwing the football. But I really wonder, are these targets that we're talking about, are they going to be the targets we see throughout the season? Or is this something where that system is going to be more placated to the receivers than it is to the quarterback? Because the quarterback is so developed and matured and experienced that now maybe the guys who we think are going to be catching really good footballs are not. Like, I'll give you a name out there who will go undrafted in every league. And yet, actually, I'll give you two names who I think are Patrick Mahomes' top targets, and they would clearly, in my eyes, not be at the top of the depth chart. That would be Mecole Hardman from the Super Bowl and Justin Watson, who he's thrown passes to. And there's also the other guy I'm blanking on who is really good here too. The one we liked. Oh, he might not be on the team anymore. But yeah, Justin Watson. No, Rashee Rice is on the team. But yeah, Justin Roth. That's the guy that you and I like. But he's on the team still. So, but yeah, like Justin Watson and what where am I at on this? Justin Watson and Miko Hardman. Those are guys that Mahomes feels really confident with. And there might be weeks where both those guys go off or one of them goes off or something like that. So I really wonder if this is a team too, where you look at Mahomes as a whole, and I think he's going to benefit more than those wide receivers in terms of fantasy.
Right. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. I know Patrick Mahomes falls behind like Josh Allen and guys like that at the top of the board when it comes to drafting quarterbacks. But you got to think about it. The dude threw 4,000 yards. He had 27 touchdowns. And he actually rushed for nearly 400 yards, which is kind of bananas.
It's scrambles. It's all scrambles.
Yeah. He had literally the worst. His team was worst in the league in drops last year. They had 38 drops.
Yeah.
They were second worst in catch rate of more than 20 plus yards. Like, you're literally having the worst wide receiver season of all time, and the dude still threw for 4,200 yards. Like,
yeah,
just catch half of those balls. I mean, literally the drop rate for 20 plus yards was 27%. That's insane.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. I just feel too like he's playing much like, I don't know, he's playing smarter football in all honesty, where like once he sees a weakness, boom, he hits it. It's not necessarily like we saw in his younger career where he was just slinging it, just left and right, just slinging it. But I think now he's making just smarter, brilliant decisions like he did at the end of that Super Bowl. And I think we're going to see that just so much more often now. I do feel like you do that. I think this drop rate is going to still show up. I think like a stock, it could improve, but I think we're still going to have the drops because, again, we're talking so many different wide receivers are going to be flowing in and out of this lineup. And then on top of that, this team has Hollywood Brown. I know he's a little banged up at the moment, but you have Hollywood Brown on this team, and he is a notorious dropping passes kind of a guy. And if this is a guy, too, who hasn't made it work with either Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, to me, there's more going on with Hollywood Brown than there is with those quarterbacks.
See, I'm kind of the opposite on the drop rate. I actually think they're going to – I mean, he literally had like – I know it sounds crazy because he's still Patrick Mahomes and they still won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
He had the worst yards per attempt, the worst touchdown percentage and interception percentage through his 6 years of being an NFL starter. All of those numbers are going to have to like improve.
They have to improve. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yes.
So the one guy that I actually think is going to make this improvement like skyrocket.
Okay.
Xavier Worthy. They drafted him 28th overall out of Texas.
The speed demon. The speed demon.
Yeah. The guy had 7.7 yards per catch on each target. He broke 15 tackles. Like, he's literally like you said, a speed demon. Ran a 4.2 40 at the combine. Like,
yes.
They moved up to 28th to get this guy. Like,
yes.
No matter what happens. I mean, St. Brown. Hollywood Brown.
That sounds like a really good player, actually. That'd be a really good player.
Hollywood Brown, like, he really, that's true. I mean, he had a foot injury a couple years ago. He's banged up again. Like, Xavier Worthy might just shoot into that, like, number one wide receiver spot out of the blue because who knows what happens with Rashee Rice and his bonehead mistakes off the field. And, like, who knows if Travis Kelce – I mean, every year you can kind of just project Kelce to get 900 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like, just set him and forget him. But Xavier Worthy might be the guy.
Yeah, I think Xavier Worthy's the guy. And I'll give you a little inside scoop, especially into, like, tips and tricks when it comes to looking at players of this caliber. In our 24-team league, honestly, every time I've done mock drafts, and even on my fantasy football puzzle that I've laid out for each round, looking at it at the drafts, and I've revised that model multiple times. I actually did have a setup where I did look at drafting both Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. I can tell you in both mocks that I have done, the computer that has, or the robot that has drafted Patrick Mahomes has drafted in both mock drafts, has drafted Xavier Worthy with him. So that is a pairing that I think you absolutely have to do, because I think it is somewhat reminiscent of Mahomes to Tyreek Hill, or like we're seeing with Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill. I think that combination is that dynamic that you're looking at possibly 60 to 80 points from just two players.
Yeah, that's a knockout.
Yeah. I mean, that could easily just hit in any given week, no matter what fantasy league you're playing in. So I think you're right on this. Like, if I am looking at the Chiefs in fantasy, to me, those are two of the three players that I would want outside of some daily lineups that I move in and out of some guys. I'm right there with you. I think Worthy, Mahomes, and for me, Isaiah Pacheco. I would not play with Travis Kelce. I've seen him fall off at the end of last season, and I got burned by that 2 years ago. So his play is truly declining. If you draft him, you need to understand when it comes to the end of your fantasy league, he will probably let you down, and he will either be hurt or he will just not play well.
Right. And the only other part about the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, they had the number 2 ranked defense in the NFL last year. They were number 6 in fantasy. They had the second most sacks in the NFL. So, like, if you're just gonna pick a defense when it's time to pick defenses at the end of the draft, Kansas City's pretty good.
I will counter that. I disagree. I have two concerns with that. Yeah. So one, we're already seeing injury concerns with Chris Jones. I do wonder about his durability. Him not in that lineup drastically changes that defense. The other part to that is Ladarius Sneed. Ladarius Sneed really shuts down that secondary. He is no longer there. He is a Tennessee Titan. And like we talked about last episode, the Titans have greatly improved, especially their secondary. So he is no longer a Kansas City Chief. The third thing that we're looking at here, and I think it'll be okay, but of those three issues, this is the one I'm kind of least concerned about, is if we look at the design of that offense. To me, it screams that they're trying to put 3 speed demons out there outside as frequently as possible. It's probably not going to happen because of either durability or ability, like by catching a football, like Hollywood Brown. I think the one who's really going to make it is probably Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice. If Rashee Rice can avoid the legal issues, he might make it, and he is fantastic as well. But I think this team is going to move that tempo so fast that then the defense is back on the field shortly. So I want a defense in fantasy. I want a meticulous defense that can get turnovers, get off the field right away, and not have to come back on the field for a long amount of time. That's where I'm concerned about the Chiefs.
Okay. I mean,
yeah,
understandable.
I'll let somebody else draft him.
It might be me.
Oh, okay. That's no debate. Or it is debate.
It could be a debate. What if we go to Denver? What do you got?
Yeah, Denver is a very, very interesting team, in my opinion. I think this is a good year that I think regardless of quarterback, I think this team is going to really start to figure it out. I have noticed the thing that I like about this team, just like you see with Cleveland, who we pointed out, this is a team that if you need multiple running backs, you can get them both way late. We know in recent years, Jaleel McLaughlin has been one of those really good backs He's been a little bit banged up, but you got him back there. And the other running back is basically undrafted. He is ADP of 192, so that means you're getting him in round 20 if that exists. So we're talking 2 running backs on an NFL team that is going to be an offense that drives the ball downfield because Sean Payton is just as good of an offensive play caller as Andy Reid. He's going to figure this out. I really love the value there. I also like the value on Bo Nix. Bo, to me, when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, and I think everything changes now that we saw the Bills-Bears game, and Caleb Williams is totally the real deal, man. That's a guy. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But I really think the 3 quarterbacks that are rookies that we're going to see take a big step in the right direction are Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and honestly, Bo Nix, as long as he stays healthy, as long as everything's good. I've always liked Bo Nix. I've seen him make some really good throws in here. They got some receivers on this team that are solid. Troy Franklin coming back from injury. Marvin Mims is a really good receiver as well. They got Cortland Sutton on this team. They have a sneaky good receiving core. Remember, they lost 5 guys that were receivers last year. That's just insane. I just don't think any team can recover from losing 5 starting or their top 5 wide receivers on any team. I just don't think that's recoverable for any NFL team, actually. So you have that. And sneaky tight end, we're talking way deep, pretty much undrafted, ADP of 242. If you have a young quarterback, a receiving core that's good, they're going to drive the ball downfield. Tight end Greg Dulcich. I've always been on the bandwagon for Dulcich. I think he's phenomenal. He's been a little banged up recently. He had good chemistry with Russell Wilson. I like Dulcich, man. He's got kind of, to me, he's almost got that Travis Kelce kind of style and body type about him. I think when he's out there, he makes some really good catches, big plays. I'm excited to see Dulcich do some good things this season.
Nice. So at first I was kind of, I like to just find teams where I'm like, I'm not touching anybody there. But then I started looking into this team, and Javonte Williams really puzzles me a bit. But remember, last year, he was coming off of that ACL, LCL, like the whole leg was basically falling off. He still came back in week 1, ran for 700 yards, but he didn't score. He only had 3 touchdowns, which kind of sucks for a running back. And so then I started thinking, well, Jaleel McLaughlin as his backup. The dude's the NCAA's all-time leading rusher. So I'm kind of like, all right, right. And I'm just like, okay, let me look into him. Well, he filled in for an injured Williams in week 4 and 5. He had a combined 37 fantasy points. That's insane.
That's pretty awesome, man. I like him.
So with those 2 guys, if you can get them later in the draft, like you said you could, like that might be pretty much a steal to have those 2 guys together, because Williams is definitely going to score more than 3 touchdowns. And then I looked at Cortland Sutton, right?
Sure. Okay.
Cortland Sutton had 772 receiving yards last season.
Okay.
He had 10 touchdowns.
10 touchdowns. 700 yards. Whoa. That's wild.
Yeah. Like, right. And I'm just like, okay, guys, a touchdown. That is wild. I agree. Bo Nix, right? Which I really like Bo Nix as well. And just like you said, you're basically getting the guy for free at the end of the draft. He came in from Auburn, went to Oregon, and then had this stellar year last year. He was 77% completion percentage, which is an NCAA record.
Yeah.
Insane. 45 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. And we know that Sean Payton loves to throw the football. Doesn't matter if he's got a short guy, tall guy, doesn't matter. He can have 17 like all pro running backs, and he's like, we're still throwing the football. So now
Totally.
you have two pretty solid running backs, and then you have Cortland Sutton, who will just catch everything. Tim Patrick's coming back; he's sure-handed. Like,
Yep.
and then you said Mims, he's a speedster. Like, they're going to be pretty loaded. I don't know if that's going to get them to win games, but hey, when you're losing, you're probably throwing the football. Bo Nix might have a bajillion yards.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing too. Looking at last season too, like their defense was miserable, just absolutely awful. Like that's why they were losing so many games last season, is how bad that defense is. And I'm even looking here too, like further down on their lineup, they have Josh Reynolds. We knew
Mm-hmm.
like how well he's played alongside Jared Goff in both Detroit and LA. And they also have, beyond those two running backs, they even have Samaje Perine there as well. And I like Samaje. He's a really good running back. I've seen him play.
That's
He
a
hasn't really
great
been
name.
a like really, really cool. So we're even seeing two guys that if we have to pick up guys off the waiver wires and start them in a pinch, if we see them with a really nice matchup, there's just some really, really good things going on here with those guys. And to me, this is a team that honestly, I'm looking at a ton of players, and there's even some guys who I'm not drafting who I think I might end up using in other weeks. I just think this team is like fantasy value gold, in all honesty. I think there is so much here that you can get on the low end, because the stigma in people's minds is that this team stinks. And I think this is a
Yep.
team that will actually make a push for the playoffs in the AFC. They may not get there, but I think they'll absolutely be close.
See, I don't know if they'll be close, but they'll be one of those teams where like every game is close, where they
Yeah,
may lose by missing a field goal or throwing an
right.
interception at the end of the game or
Yep,
whatever. But I just don't think they have it all together yet, and it
yep.
might take them a year. Speaking
Yeah.
of teams that don't have it all together, how about
Hmm.
the Chargers?
Yeah, so the Chargers are a team that honestly, like I've kind of, I don't know, I this was a team that I kind of had some sneaky good feelings about with who I wanted to go with um in fantasy, but I'm seeing too many issues here, man. There's just way too much. I think this team is just fantasy radioactivity that, like, I think you got to stay away from a lot of stuff going on here. Unfortunately, um, the biggest draw here to me, this team, is obviously Justin Herbert. He's dealing with plantar fasciitis. I'm pretty sure he'll be good to go at the start of the season, but there's always been stuff with him, whether it's been the foot, whether it's been his middle finger on his throwing hand, whether it's been broken ribs. There's a lot of stuff going on here where like we just need a healthy season out of Herbert or like Joe Burrow, and we're not getting it. So it's kind of rough. And then to me, the number one player in fantasy that I was targeting, that I don't know what to do with now, and the fact that there's been so much turnover on this team. I think Lad McConkey is like the next Cooper Cup. In all honesty, I think Lad McConkey is insane, absolutely insane, man. Like watch his tape from Georgia. He's pretty awesome. He's a slot wide receiver, and people know like what my rule of thumb is on fantasy. Like I think slot wide receivers are the most valuable player you can go with, and consistency too. I think Lad McConkey is just insane. But I do wonder about the health.
So this is going to be my ongoing theme for these rookie guys that I really like. I'm glad Lad McConkey was your guy to go for. So
Yeah,
the Chargers traded up to get him 34th overall. And
he's a
they
first
knew they
round
needed a
talent,
wide
really.
receiver. Yeah, exactly. The dude ran
Yeah,
a 4.39 40-yard dash, and he
yeah,
played at Georgia. Like they're basically an NFL team sometimes.
yes, they
Uh,
are.
with
Yep.
elite speed and quickness, I mean, coming out of the slot, this dude is going to light it up. Um, I'm I'm kind of hit or miss with the ex-Ravens at running back.
I don't
Gus
like him.
Edwards had 13 touchdowns last year, which is insane, and he
Yeah.
still wasn't like a top running back in fantasy. It was kind of strange, especially when the Ravens run the ball a lot.
Yep.
J.K. Dobbins was injured last year. We all thought he was going to be a top guy. So, I mean, now he's sitting behind Gus Edwards, so he's kind of in the same spot. Like you said, Josh Palmer, he's probably going to be the number one receiver, and
He's
I don't
scrappy.
like, huh?
Yeah. He's scrappy, man. He is, but I'm with you. I don't know if you want him as the one.
Yeah, like if he falls to, where is he going on sleeper?
Sleeper, he is going at basically 140. So we're basically talking right at the beginning of round 15 for a
Oh,
10-team league.
all right. Well, he's changed my process right there. My
Sure.
whole brain. If you're getting this dude in the like end of the draft and he's going to be the number one receiver, I'm going to probably get him in
Roll.
like the 12th or something. Like I will probably
Yes.
reach a couple rounds if I'm getting a number one receiver in the 12th round.
Absolutely. You got that going on too. Also, whether you draft him, definitely the matchup to me matters because this guy's really been a journeyman on a lot of teams, and we've always thought it would work. Who knows? I honestly, I still think that this goes back to his issues with the issues he had in a previous sport. But I really wonder, and I kind of like the value. Hayden Hurst, tight end, going completely undrafted, playing alongside Justin Herbert. Um, Man, it's now or never. Either Hayden Hurst is going to make it work with the Chargers, or his career is over. That's it.
Yeah. They have Will Disley over there too. So I don't know. Maybe some 12 personnel. We love 12
May,
personnel at No Debate Sports.
Yeah, we do. We do love 12 personnel at No Debate Sports. It's crazy advantageous in fantasy football too. But I like Hayden Hurst. I think he would be better than Will Disley. Honestly, I think Will Disley made his money off of honestly Russell Wilson plus a little bit of Geno Smith. And I think those guys really kind of lean on the tight end because they're not as confident with their wide receivers, to be honest. But I think honestly, Justin Herbert is going to have to use Hayden Hurst just for the fact that the other wide receivers are so green or they're just not quite there. That's where I really see Hayden Hurst making a fantasy impact.
Right. I agree. So I guess we're going to the NFC East, right?
Whoa. Yeah, we can't neglect my favorite NFL team of the 32 NFL teams. I mean, my goodness.
Oh yeah, the LA Raider. I mean the
Hey, if you
Oakland
want to say LA, yeah,
I
we are
mean
definitely LA
the Las Vegas Raiders.
and Las Vegas. Oh yeah, exactly. We own that entire section of the Southwest,
Oh
and
wow.
like yeah, and like 90% of the state of California.
Jeez.
Yeah,
You
so
just own everything.
we own two states, probably part of Arizona, and almost the entirety of California. So it's pretty cool seeing that. However, when it comes to fantasy, I'll just lead off. I think and it's unfortunate. It's just a factor of the offense. Devontae Adams' ADP is just way too high.
Where is he?
Basically 18.
So
And it's
okay.
it's not against Devontae Adams. It's more of a fact of just how this offense operates. Devontae Adams in a normal situation would to me be he would definitely be 100% a second round guy in a 10-team league at the top of a second round.
Okay. So I'm gonna defend Devontae Adams for you.
Okay.
This dude went through 3 quarterbacks last year, and he went through a coaching change in the middle of the year. He still finished 10th for wide receivers in fantasy football.
That's mind
Think
blowing.
about it this way. Huh?
That's
Mind
mind
blowing?
blowing. Yes.
Yeah. He has the highest target share in the NFL, and he had 5
Wow.
games of over 14 fantasy points. Think about it
Perfect.
this way.
Okay.
We kind of know that Aiden O'Connell is not going to get the spot over Gardner Minshew.
No, he's not. It's going to be Gardner.
Gardner Minshew is a
He can throw,
he's a
man.
gunslinger,
Yeah,
right?
he is.
Devontae Adams had 103 catches, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns with all of that nonsense.
Yeah, he did.
Who says he can't get more than that this year? I know he's coming
That's
in at
fair.
31, but like you could do a lot worse than a guy at 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns in the second
Yeah.
round.
And the fact that he's 31, I mean, honestly, to me, he kind of reminds me of like the NFL version of LeBron James in just body type and looking good for your age professionally. So I think he's a guy that he's going to stand the test of time. He's going to play into his 30s for quite a while, I think. So I like that. Yeah, you're definitely right on that. Yeah, I think you can definitely make the case that Devontae Adams alongside Gardner Minshew is going to be pretty top notch. I like that quite a bit. To me, the big value I see on this team is Zamir White.
Yes.
I and like I said, I've seen the guy play for the last 2 seasons. I had no qualms about losing Josh Jacobs because honestly, for the last roughly 5 years, the whole running back core for the Raiders has actually been really, really top notch. So it's just been guy after guy after guy after guy. And we're now at the point where we took one of the best players on the best team in Georgia and gave that guy time to learn, grow, and really just become a player to grow into his own. And this guy averages honestly like 5 yards a carry. And that's behind Josh Jacobs, not with the receiving targets that the Raiders have in a really monster kind of package. And now he's the guy. I think Zamir White is just going to be an absolute monster in fantasy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, at the end of the season last year, when they kind of shut down Jacobs, he rushed a league high 84 times in 4 games. He ranked 4th in yards with 457 or 457 yards from scrimmage, and he had 2.3 yards after first contact, which was 8th among running backs. Like he was a fantasy stud when he got to play. Like now you add him in the lead role, you have Alexander Madison behind him. Like Zamir White could be like a fantasy winner for you.
Yeah.
Where's he going? Where's he going?
Zamir White, this is pretty wild. ADP is just under 80. So you're talking beginning of round 9, end of round 8 in a 10-team league, which to me is like, man, I would be sweating bullets at that point if I'm trying to wait on this guy for like round 8 or beginning of round 9. Like he is way better than that. Like,
wow.
We're talking round in my eyes, this is a guy who should be in a 10-team league. This is a guy who should be going probably round 3, to be honest. This is a round 3 guy.
Definitely a top 4. I mean, no doubt about it.
Yeah, this is a scary team in my eyes because this is the biggest black and blue old school football team out there, but also doing something unique in having such big targets to throw to. This team is all big. And I don't think so there's 2 things we've never really seen in the NFL. We've never seen teams go like all in on speed, which the Kansas City Chiefs are going to do this season. And we've also never seen a team go all in on size across all of their receiving targets. The Raiders are going all in on size. So you have the size of Jacoby Myers. Devontae Adams is monstrous. Brock Bowers, the new tight end, is monstrous. Michael Myers, the the other tight end is a monster in size. There's so much size here that teams have to match up with those targets. And then Zamir White is just going to run scot-free. Like, you can never load the box against Zamir White. He's going to see 7 to 6 guys in the box the entire season.
And if they're running 12 personnel with those two big tight ends, like, he's going to have some gaps to run through.
Oh, yeah, totally, man. Those tight ends, they're going to block. Man, there's just so much crazy stuff that Zamir White is going to do. I think it's absolutely insane that he is going near the 80s. That to me, it just makes no sense.
True story. Speaking of guys that like to run people over, let's go to Buffalo. How do you feel about Josh Allen?
Josh Allen is interesting. I know you brought him up earlier, but to me, I have a friend at work that is really knowledgeable about a ton of different sports. Ironically, the Buffalo Bills are his team that he loves and rides or dies with, and he is expecting not too good of a season out of Josh Allen. I haven't really seen the preseason game against the Bears. I mean, obviously, it's loaded with Bears highlights, but I'm concerned with, again, just like the Chargers, there's a lot of turnover on this team. I do like the change to 12 personnel, but there's also the recklessness of Josh Allen. But I don't know, like, when it comes to fantasy, too, I say don't worry about injuries. If injuries happen, they happen. Just like life, you got to figure it out. You have to move on. That is fantasy football. But I am a little concerned, too, that we might see more dud games out of Josh Allen than we're expecting. I think, it's ironic because I'm looking at Josh Allen and I'm looking at his offensive players that come after him, and I like all of them. But I wonder, like, just like the Raiders, how much is this team going to push the ball downfield? I think I look at these guys, and I think a lot of these guys are keeping the mid-range part of the field moving. Honestly, all three of them. I see James Cook, I see Dalton Kincaid, and I know he's got Dawson Knox for 12 personnel, and Keon Coleman, the newly drafted wide receiver out of Florida State, who I think that guy went at the beginning of round 2, but I'm pretty sure both you and I recognize Keon Coleman, Florida State. That guy is truly a first-round wide receiver. He's phenomenal. He's fantastic. I've seen him make great catches. But I think this team really wants to work their way meticulously downfield instead of just slinging guys left and right and having Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs just run willy-nilly all down the field. So I think the Josh Allen numbers take a step back.
See, that I'm with you, but I'm like on the verge of teetering a little bit. So in the last 3 seasons, he's been the highest quarterback player in fantasy football.
Yeah.
He lost Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, but he was down to 253 yards a game last season, which you would think that would mess up his fantasy numbers, but it didn't. Okay. He threw 18 touchdowns or 18 interceptions last year, and you would think that would knock down his fantasy production, but it didn't. He rushed for 15 touchdowns last year. Like, he's almost like you just set it and forget it and just go, if I can get him, I get him. If not, I'm not going to, ruin my entire fantasy board just to get Josh Allen. But if he's there, I would say what? Third? Is he a third-round pick? Is that where they have him?
Basically right beginning of round 3, he is regarded as the number 1 quarterback in fantasy for those exact reasons. I think of him as truly as like a lesser Andrew Luck, but a greater Andrew Luck in terms of durability.
And rushing touchdowns. He's going to get you double-digit rushing touchdowns. Now, like you said, the big thing about Coleman is like Coleman led the Florida State Seminoles in receptions, yards, and touchdowns last season.
Yes.
And they got him in the second round. He basically fell. And now
it was a trade. It was like a trade up.
Yeah. He's basically fallen into the best spot he could be in. I mean, do we think Curtis Samuel is going to take spots from him or Khalil Shakur? Like, not really. I don't
Shakir,
really.
I believe Shakir would. I believe Shakir will be that really good slot receiver in the center. I think that game, but again, too, like you brought up, this is where the 12 personnel comes into play. If you bring 12 personnel, you're going to lose Shakir more than likely.
Yeah,
So then it is Keon and Curtis. But here's the interesting thing is maybe of those three receivers, the sneaky value and the one to pay attention to, and this might be where like, man, if I want to figure out who the number 2 wide receiver on a team is and get good at figuring out number 2 wide receivers, maybe it's Curtis Samuel because
maybe.
Keon's a rookie. He's going to go through a season to me like Drake London. Like, you're the guy, man. Like, they expect you to be the guy. Defenses look at you as the guy. The rest of the team, positionally wise for targets, they're still going to go to other guys, but they're still probably going to find their way to you more often than not. Keon Coleman to me is the guy. So I think I like the value out of Curtis Samuel. And yeah, here's the other thing. So I remember this from the last few seasons. Curtis Samuel's last name is Samuel. Who else does he play and emulate who also has the last name Samuel? And we've seen this in fantasy. Debo. So now the Bills have a Debo Samuel factor in Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel has rushing ability as well. I know it's not showing up here on Sleeper, but Curtis Samuel can rush the football as well. So we might see some sneaky rushing plays and really fun formations, kind of emulating maybe the San Francisco 49ers with how they play with Curtis Samuel and that 12 personnel package that they're bringing with Knox and Kincaid.
So I'm with you with Samuel because I bet he's pretty low on projections.
Not as low as you would think. He's going at beginning of round 13 at basically ADP of 122.
I mean that's still pretty low for a guy that's going to be the number 2, possibly number 1 receiver on the team.
Right.
I'm just looking at their overall roster, the depth chart, and they look like the land of misfit toys. I mean,
Yes.
you have Curtis Samuel over there. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy.
Yes.
Dawson Knox. You're like, oh yeah, that dude. Ty Johnson, the running backs there. Mitchell Trubisky's there. MVS, he can't catch anything, but he's there. Your boy
Oh,
Mac
that's right.
Collins is over here. Like,
Wow.
they have a bunch. Chase Claypool is on this team. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I
I
thought he
didn't
was in
either.
Miami.
Right.
Oh,
KJ
boy.
Hamler's on this team. That dude was supposed to be somebody a year or two ago. Like, it's almost Josh Allen, and let's hope for the best. I do
Yeah.
like James Cook.
Yes.
He did like explode by the end of the season, so
Yep.
he's probably projected to be really high. He was the 12th running back in fantasy last season, which is pretty cool.
But it took him a little bit.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
1,100 yards, but he only had 2 touchdowns, which hopefully he can get more than 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That 1,100 yards might fall a little bit, but
Yeah.
who knows? James Cook and Josh Allen are probably the only dudes worth touching to me, unless one of those other guys falls in a spot that I can pick them.
Yeah, I'm also along the lines that I see so much of this. I know we talked about the receivers, but I just think flat out the number 1 target, who Josh Allen wants to revolve the offense this season around, to me, is Dalton Kincaid. There is no way I draft Josh Allen and don't draft Dalton Kincaid. There's just no way. Like, it has to be that way, man. It has to be that combination.
Dalton and Josh.
Yes.
Nice.
So you would be able to basically almost, like, if that's how you want to roll, you would basically pair them together. And we're talking Josh Allen in basically round 3, and then Dalton Kincaid. If you really want to make sure you get him, you can get him in round 5, but he probably goes at the beginning of round 6.
All right, let's see here.
Cool.
I mean, I'm not going to skip this team, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty fast. How about New England? What do you
got? Boy, that actually is a great question. I got nothing. I just don't think there's anything on this team until we see it show up in terms of weekly, I mean, I do like Drake May. I think he's a really good guy. I think he's moving in the right direction. I see really good things coming out of his future. But yeah, there's nothing. I wouldn't touch any one of these fantasy players, not even the defense. There's nothing on this team that you can really believe in yet. We just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, unless Ramondre has fallen to like 10th round, I'm yeah.
I still don't care. I really don't think he's that good. Ezekiel Elliott was better than him. I've never been a believer in Ramondre Stevenson. I just really don't think he's good.
I do like Demario Douglas, kind of.
Oh yeah. Pop Douglas is his nickname. I do know they like him, and he is really cool. He's already banged up. But yeah, Pop Douglas is a really good player. I will see if it happens in fantasy, but yeah, he's a cool guy.
Late round. Yeah. Well, that one was fast.
That was it.
What do you got for Miami?
So this is something I've brought up with some people. Not sure if we've discussed it here. Boy, this is cool. I am looking at it, and in a 10-team league, I think mathematically it is actually viable. And I think if I were drafting at the top of a draft, I think I would pull the trigger. And the theory I have here is basically, okay, so let's call it what it is now. So it's August 12th, right? Would you like, and we got to go a little tips and tricks on this. Do you feel comfortable drafting Christian McCaffrey in the top 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that can also play into your strategy too, that if you have IR spots on your team as well, you can go through your draft. You can draft Christian McCaffrey highly, obviously. And then when your draft is over, you can place Christian McCaffrey on an IR spot and then acquire another player. If that happens, he may not start the year on IR, but if that happens, you can roll with that. So that's cool there. But the interesting part here is going in the top 4 is clearly Tyreek Hill.
Right.
My theory that I have in fantasy that you could pull off in a 10-team league, not our crazy 24-team league or 32, what we're looking at in the future. But I think if you're in a 10-team league and you are at the top of a draft, I am considering rolling the dice almost 100% as much as I can with Miami Dolphins. Because this is fantasy football in real life. It really is. So if I can get Tyreek Hill at the beginning of round 1, the beginning of round 3 is Db8 Chain. The beginning of round 4 is Jalen Waddle. So you probably don't get Waddle. Then we're looking further back. Now we have Raheem Mostert going at the end of round 8. And then we have Tua Tagovailoa going at the beginning of round 11. So I can get those guys. I can get all those guys. I can even get like tight end. I'll figure out probably on a different team. Also, like since Mike McDaniels has been the coach there, they really don't know what the heck they're doing at tight end. This is a team that doesn't really work with the tight end position for whatever reason. And then they also have running back Jalen Wright, the rookie. So I would try to triple down on all the running backs because we know they're all insane. So this is the one team that if I could, at the very top of a 10-team draft all Miami Dolphins.
That's not insane. The only issue I have with that, well, actually, you know what? Because you would be starting both running backs. The thing that bit
possibly
people,
3.
Right. The thing that bit people last year is, Db8 Chain would come out and have like a phenomenal game. I mean, he had 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. But then Raheem Mostert, who you thought was going to take a step back, has 1,018 touchdowns. And you're going, I don't know what's happening anymore. But Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are both going to give you 1,000. Waddle's not really a big scoring threat.
But he was hurt.
Yeah.
And he's always been hurt.
That's true. And he might be the one guy, unless like he's just sitting there for me, that if there's someone around the same amount of, yards and stats that I can see in that same spot, I might pass on him.
Beginning around 4, though, I would definitely roll with Waddle just because I can see it. And if it breaks, then I can put him on IR and I can get another player. That's why I would do it.
But if there's someone there that I can guarantee is not going to break as much as he does.
Okay.
But he gets a lot of the target share. He had about 15 points a game last season.
He should be. Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's hard to argue. I mean, you could basically go with anybody on this team.
Yes.
The one guy, I mean, if you're going to pick all the Miami Dolphins, then yeah, you got to go with Tua. But I don't know if I'm a big Tua fan. I know last year was a big deal for him, but I think a lot of those stats are kind of going to fall back a little bit. Yeah, I just don't see him throwing for 4,600 yards again.
Wow, that's a lot of yards.
It was, and
but that's why, too. The strategy is go more on the running backs than the throwing game.
Yeah, I agree, and so he might be the only guy I step back on. But if you're going to get everyone else, you might as well, combo with those guys. And
it's scary. Yeah. It's like you're basically throwing an explosive at your fantasy opponent every week, and they have to pray that it doesn't detonate. Like that is every single week that you go up against that lineup. You are like, this is just terrifying. And this is a team too that their defense is so bad that offense is going to be out there constantly trying to score points. And if they're out there constantly, physically, the receivers can't hold up. It's too hard. It's too many miles. Like you are running too many guys in and out of your lineup that the guys just get gas. So then the run game has to take over at that point. There has to be more Devon Achane. There has to be more Raheem Mostert. And then at that point, they're going to go to the rookie running back in Jalen Wright. That's no debate.
The crazy part is like true. The crazy part about them and their defense, it's so weird. They were like top 10 in yards allowed, but they gave up over 20 points a game. Still makes no sense. Like it's like, other teams score, but we just don't let them have yards.
Huh? And coached by Vic Fangio and Pro Football Focus thought they were the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they were none of that. None of that. They were complete trash. Just complete trash top to bottom. Them and the Broncos, just miserable defenses.
Jeez. Yeah, they're not complete trash, but geez, that's hurtful.
Oh, it's no debate, man. Like there's a reason why they should have both won more games, but didn't. And people are like, oh, well, there's things on offense that were not good. No, it was the defense. The defense was completely miserable and completely cost both those teams multiple games.
Right. Well, let's get to the last team.
Yep.
How about those Jets?
Yeah. So, this is a wild one. I mean, I think I got to throw this right back to you out of the gate because the player that is making my head spin, and thankfully I'm way, way, way too far back in our league to draft this player. I don't know. I have really conflicting thoughts on Breece Hall. Where are you at with Breece Hall?
I'm weird about him. So
yeah,
he recovered from the ACL tear last year. He still had 900 yards and 5 touchdowns. But remember, half of the season, or not half, but maybe a quarter of the season, he was on a snap count. So he probably could get more than 1,000 yards this year.
Okay.
There was a certain point where he was getting about 20 touches a game and 20 yards over the last 13 games. Okay. And I did see somewhere that the Jets were like the last team in run block win rate, and he was still putting up those crazy numbers. Wow. Now remember, they were probably stacking the box because no one thought anybody on their team could throw. Well, if Aaron Rodgers is back there, you can't stack the box because he's going to beat you over the top. So Brees Hall might, I mean, he might be the stud that everybody's looking for.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
he's not. I have no idea. But I'm
yeah.
probably going to lean on him. But I
Right.
heard he's going like top 5.
Right. And that is what I'm thinking is like I'm thinking more of him as a top 5 guy. Honestly, I think I feel better about him right now than Christian McCaffrey.
Mhm.
Um and it's weird because I'm looking at the ADP on Sleeper and I just don't think it's right. His ADP is basically number 9. And I think you're spot on that top 5 is where this guy belongs. The other caveat on that is like, hey, if we are unsure about how the touchdown mix is going to go, then draft Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. So you have that there. You have guys who are going to just hit the goal line. Brees Hall is crazy dynamic. I mean, talking about what you said with the run block win rate, I even got to throw it back all the way to college, right? So both him and David Montgomery both have were running backs from Iowa State. David Montgomery, pretty solid back, but he looked like he just has a little bit of miss on the speed and doesn't really have all of that power that we expect out of him. Brees Hall has both. He has the power and the speed, and he wins his. I mean, plus the win block win rate is insane. So I really, really like Brees Hall for those reasons. Pair him up with Braylon Allen, I think is a smart choice. Plus, if you have bench spots on your roster, that helps as well. So I like that there. I don't, man. It's to me this is also like the Devontae Adams of the Jets and Garrett Wilson, and it's he's getting drafted around 13, but I think Garrett Wilson is incredibly special. I think he's one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. I just don't know if I would draft him at 13.
Hmm. That's tough.
It is. It's a weird spot, man. I would rather
13.
reach on a player that I think is in the 20s that I love than go with Garrett Wilson at 13.
Okay. Let's see if I can defend him here. I mean, he had 95 receptions, 1,000 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, but again, it was Zach Wilson. And
Hmm.
that's the other factor for Brees Hall is so much of it was Zach Wilson dumping down to Hall, and then he makes his yards after catch after that.
Huh.
Right?
That's tough.
It's weird. This is a very weird fantasy football team, I think. And to me, you have the uncertainty. I think Brees Hall is truly like if you have to ride or die with anything for 17 weeks of a NFL and fantasy season, I would feel most confident with Brees Hall and Braylon Allen and possibly Aaron Rodgers. Those are the 3 that I would roll with. I know you like Tyler Conklin too.
I do. Okay. So Garrett Wilson, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
This is what I wrote down in my notes is
Yep.
he broke the franchise record for yards and receptions for a player in his first 2 years with the Jets.
Yep.
Even though Wilson was throwing him the ball, or Zach Wilson
Yeah,
was
Zach
throwing
Wilson.
him the ball.
Wow.
Like, think of how crazy that is.
Yeah. His catches are insane, man.
Yeah. So now you got Aaron Rodgers out there who's going to be able to throw the ball a little better. We probably can't name the second or third receiver on the Jets in the last 2 years. There were guys like, Randall Cobb was out there trying to run some routes. Alan Lazard was out there at one point.
Yikes.
Well, now they got Mike Williams, who's a big body, who's going to get you some yards.
He's also not going to play much because he's hurt. He's probably not going to play much because he's usually hurt.
I was going to say he did tear his ACL, but you're looking at least someone else over there that does get some catches.
Yeah.
So if the guy was getting 95 receptions and 1,000 yards, he's probably going to get more than 3 touchdowns this year because the Jets will probably score on offense.
Yeah, actually, I got a name here that looks interesting, and I'm right now on Sleeper Trigs. Could you pull up our lads and see where he actually is positionally wise on the depth chart? because this guy is actually going like completely undrafted, but I do remember hearing his name and seeing him make plays. Xavier Gipson. Is he the slot wide receiver for this team? I feel like he would be, right? Because Mike Williams is an outside guy. I think Garrett Wilson is an outside guy. So wouldn't that, by process of elimination, put Xavier Gipson in the slot? And this is a team that doesn't really run 12 personnel. Let me see if I can pull it up too here. Because if he is the slot receiver, to me, that changes things. Oh my goodness, he is. Oh my goodness. My mind just is blown. My mind is absolutely blown. This changes things, man. Xavier Gipson is going in almost the 300s. Almost the 300s. And he is obviously now the new Randall Cobb. So that's crazy, man. Xavier Gipson now has tremendous value. Tremendous value. Plus you're playing with Aaron Rodgers. To me, that is scary, man. That is really, really scary. Yeah, if you see so week one is against the 49ers. So if you're streaming and you're thinking way late, Xavier Gipson against San Francisco, who we know is going to have a good defense, a good secondary. Xavier Gipson is probably a really good option to just draft with one of your final overall draft picks.
See, I'm seeing Malachi Corley as the third receiver.
I am also seeing Malachi Corley. When I see Malachi Corley, that's going to be a fight. Malachi Corley was drafted this year in round 3. That is a very high draft pick. That is a very high draft pick, actually.
He was 65th. So you
are right. 65th overall. Wow. So basically, he's basically a round 2 talent, in all honesty. Okay. Now I'm a little scared. Now I don't know. So, but I do believe that both of those guys one of them is going to make a really big impact in the slot in certain matchups. And definitely the week 1 matchup against San Francisco, to me, screams as being one of those matchups.
And I love me some Tyler Conklin. The guy,
yes.
60 receptions, 600 yards last year, no touchdowns. I am guaranteeing he gets a touchdown this year.
And he probably gets it right out of the gate in this first game. I think if you have so much attention going on elsewhere, with that secondary figuring out the coverage they have to take care of, Tyler Conklin, I think, absolutely makes it happen. That's a guy that's going to be in the trenches. He's going to be grinding against the pass rush, but again, he will get open at times too. I think Tyler Conklin is a really solid tight end, and probably week 1 can maybe get you that touchdown against San Francisco.
Boom.
That's no debate. The other thing too on this team, if we feel that they are, I think too, like, and we heard Robert Saleh speak about this team will put together meticulous drives, right? Robert Saleh said he had drives where he saw Aaron Rodgers put 10, 7, 8 play drives together and scored a touchdown. So they're going to be out there a whole lot longer than a Zach Wilson-led offense, which means that defense is going to get time to rest. The defense is going to play really, really well. If I look at all of the NFL teams and I look at the top defenses being drafted, ironically, their week 1 opponent is number 1. I don't agree with that.
Nope.
But their week 2 opponent, or the second highest ranked NFL fantasy defense, is the New York Jets. And I think that is totally warranted.
That makes sense. I mean, they were in total yards, I think they were top 5.
Yeah.
And they were top 10 in points allowed. So, like, what do now they're not going to be out there every single rip. So yeah, they'll
Yeah.
probably be even better.
I think last season too, they were dead last in the NFL, being out there for 35 minutes on average per game, yet still putting up those numbers.
Yeah.
So they were basically the Penn State Nittany Lions of the NFL. Exactly.
Yeah, they were number 3 in total yards. Penn State. That's horrible.
Yeah.
They were number 2 in passing yards allowed. So like they don't let you pass the ball. That's pretty awesome.
Exactly. And I think I was one of those people who saw it and got a little trepidatious. But the social media throw of Jaden Daniels to his target that was a bomb downfield, that was actually against the second string corners of the New York Jets. That's not Sauce Gardner and not his counterpart. So if you have concerns about that, it's actually not those guys. So obviously Jaden Daniels is good, but he won't be great because we don't see that kind of wide open coverage coming from that great of a defense in the New York Jets' number 1 players on defense.
True story.
So that's what we got there. How about some tips and tricks? What kind of stuff do you like to do, Triggs, or what kind of things do you see going on? Do you have any like red flags on certain players or offenses in general that you're like, man, I thought this team was going to be really good, and seeing their first team players out there on offense in the preseason really makes you put up some red flags and be scared a little bit? Because I definitely got one of those teams.
Oh, see, I don't really pay too much attention to preseason. Like I see kind of my players do certain things, and then I'm like, Jordan Love went out there for one pass and threw like a bomb down the side to
Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah, Dontavian Wicks, and it was just like, oh, that guy was holding out. Like he missed some practice. Did he really though? Like, I don't know.
Right. That stuff matters. But I think there's a team that I was kind of high on that I know I don't feel as secure with anymore because now the number 1 quarterback has some weird injury issues. And the backup, who we thought was going to kind of take off and explode, really, really is fumbling his way through this offense. And to me, that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if they are led by Justin Fields, I'm very concerned with this team on offense. And I almost want to put up the red flags and say, have at it, guys. If anyone wants to draft Pittsburgh Steelers, go get them. It won't be me. And like his ball control from the snaps, he had that issue in Chicago. It has found its way to Pittsburgh with him. Something with his ball security on offense is really, really scary looking. So I don't think we get that crazy cool rookie season we had out of Justin Fields. I think we get more of the chaos and turnovers that we've been seeing recently from Justin Fields, if that's the case.
I mean, the only guy I was going to pick on that team was Pickens anyway.
Right.
I mean, even with the terrible quarterback play he's been with, he's still gotten 1,000 yards,
yes.
over 100 targets, 5 touchdowns. Yes. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And Pickens, too, is like he is going to be the number 1 receiver on that team finally. Like, it is his team. He is the guy. No more Darius Hayward-Bay. So it is all Pickens at this point. I see it. But I definitely got some warning signs with the Steelers going on. So I'm a little concerned about that. But yeah, that's kind of what I got, I guess, on the negative side. But on the positive side, definitely a tip I've been doing a little more recently is if you see a guy you like that is going virtually undrafted, you can use that to your advantage. You can also do that at the quarterback position as well. If you know that there's if you want to build a just stacked team, but you don't want to have any value at quarterback, and you do want to play with possibly streaming quarterbacks, then you could potentially get the last quarterback that exists, and they will naturally just fall to you. So you can actually just put your quarterback last, or you can put that player that you think is undrafted, that is a non-quarterback, you can put them last. What does that do? That allows you to get a better defense and a better kicker, because you're taking them essentially a round earlier than people that notoriously take defenses and kickers in the final 2 rounds of a draft. So that's the cool option that I see with going with that plan. Again, if you have a smaller league with more rounds, then you really got to prioritize that, because at that point you might actually get too diluted on the kicker, which I can live with, but you might get too diluted on the defense. So that to me is something that you want to play with. But again, too, this is a season where I think guys like Harrison Butker and I'm blanking on the name, the kicker for the Justin Tucker for the Ravens. I think those 2 guys are going to just have monstrous seasons. So if you can land either of those 2 kickers, I think you're going to be sitting real pretty. Ironically, they both play outdoors too, so that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat where quarterback-wise, like I think we were talking about it a couple weeks ago that like Aaron Rodgers is going undrafted. Will Levis is going undrafted. And it's like, if I can wait on those guys and then get a stacked lineup, why not?
Yeah, and you could get not only that, you can get also Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield are all in that bunch, along with Aaron Rodgers and Will Levis. That's a really good bunch, man. Like, I think you're going to have a really stacked team if any of those guys are leading your fantasy squad.
True story.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at there. We're giving out what we got. We got our fantasy stuff coming up this upcoming weekend, so we're not giving too many goodies out of the goodie bag, but those are definite tricks and tips to live by. If you get a chance, check us out on our website on Db8Sports.com. We have a course that we made for kind of how to plan out your fantasy football preseason and kind of plan your way out and get ready for your draft. Build a cheat sheet, build a fantasy football puzzle. And you can do these things. You can do it on a computer. You can do it off on paper if you're really good at that math too. So you can build these things, and that will prep you for your fantasy draft. So you're not just living and breathing by the rankings of whatever platform you're working on. So right there, that's where you can go. You can check it out, NoDebateSports.com, and you can find all those goodies there. You can find us on these social medias. We have stuff that we've posted as well about kind of building some fantasy football stuff. So check it out, and we'll see you guys next week. So I'm Steve Metrics. That's your boy,
DJ Trays.
And that's No Debate.